We start our next session, which is Living a Healthy Lifestyle with LHON with Evan Schwerbrock.
So I have a quote here from Sir Ranulph Fiennes, one of the greatest explorers. He's been called the greatest explorer of the last century. And he says that success is not measured by what we achieve, but by the obstacles we overcome. I know that all of us, whether we are affected or not, we have our different trials in our lives. And it's really about overcoming that as opposed to just doing things. You know, when people do something really, really easily, or they're clearly just super genetically blessed, we don't tend to value that nearly as much. It's those people who have those Rudy stories, you know, those really big comebacks. Although actually the guy from Rudy, I hear, is not the nicest, kind of played it up a little bit. So the true obstacles, not the ones we, made up for ourselves. And does anybody know who Sir Ranulph Fiennes is? What he has done? It's a long list for him too. He discovered ancient cities. He made it to both poles. He's a crazy, crazy explorer, dude. His wife just went, "You're getting a little crotchety right now. It's been a while since you went to the South Pole, isn't it?" We'll just send him off. So he was really big on avoiding obstacles on purpose. There was one reporter who went, "So what if you come across this crazy crevice and this crag on your way to the South Pole, and you have to do something crazy and use your ropes across it or whatever? These really, really hard obstacles. What do you do in those circumstances?" He goes, "I go around them." And she was mind blown by that. And it's yeah, if you're going to do some really, really impressive things, it doesn't mean being just an insane frat guy and seeing if you can put your head through a wall. Sometimes it's figure out the nice workaround. And that's what I do with everything that I do for the blind community is we just need to find our workarounds and figure out what works well for us and what's a little bit more accessible. Next slide, please. Okay, so keep your phones out. That's gonna be very important. We're gonna have a lot of QR codes here as well. If that isn't very easily accessible to you, that is okay. Don't freak out. Just make sure you're still staying locked in, and you can always email me and I can send you links directly. All right, next slide, please. So does anybody know that social media thing where people are "I'm gonna show you an arm exercise. Here are my credentials." This is where I feel we're just talking about a bunch of different letters. My last name is long enough, but we've added a couple as well. So after I was affected, I went and got my master's in kinesiology with concentration in applied exercise physiology. Basically, I like exercise things. Got very into bioenergetics and nutrition as well. Fitness nutrition specialist, certified strength conditioning specialist, which is the gold standard of strength coaches. And that's why I can call myself the blind strength coach. And then more recently, we've more demonstrably shown, though we kind of suspected it, but now on a world stage, been able to prove that I am the world's strongest blind man. So if we go to the next slide as well, please. We're going to go through some strongman events I've had to do. This is flipping a 500-pound tire for reps. Very interesting just by feel. This is pulling a fully loaded, all the water in it fire truck.
Go!
My support system. This is deadlifting 650 pounds for the first time. And this was lifting an Atlas stone, one of the big concrete stones that weighs 387 pounds, and to this day would be an unofficial adaptive world record. You can hear how my mom encourages me versus how my brother encourages me. It's versus come on. So both styles work clearly. All right, next slide, please. This is going to be from the Adaptive Strength World Championships from this last year, which were in Birmingham, England, sponsored by Magnus for Magnuson, four-time world's strongest man. And clip is already almost over because this went really well. This was technically the heaviest adaptive Atlas Stone run. And I think I was the only person in the World Championships to finish it. And it was about 12 seconds. So when you hear one of the strongest Icelandic guys ever go, "Where did that come from?" You're "Yeah, I did it. Cool." All right. So that was, again, in England, being able to travel internationally and do some fun things that way. And then the next slide will have got to go and do some stuff at official strongman games this year. The announcer just said there, it's the first time I've been behind the wheel in 10 years. I am carrying the outside, the shell of a Volkswagen Beetle on my back, 250 feet. So I got to have fun doing that. And that was really, really special to me because it was literally 10 years in one day since I had to drive home from an eye appointment, figured out pretty much myself that I had Liebers, that's what it had to be, and I put my truck keys away. So to be able to do that just, at the 10-year mark was really fun. Next slide, please. Oh, and I do want to talk about official strongman games a little bit more. That was part of an adaptive showcase, and now they're because of that and several other guys who came and did a really good job with that showcase. We proved that we are considered worthy to be able to be there on the world stage with the world's strongest everybody but the really big guys who are like on ESPN and everything. So we're going to be at the World Championships competing as disabled athletes as well on a much larger stage. So things are really growing in that area. Yes, we are super excited about that and that people with disabilities are getting their kind of fair shake in the sport now. Okay, so as we all know, there's typically a lack of physical activity in the blind community, which is unfortunate. And there's also a couple of these studies where you read them and you just go, yeah, no duh, where physical activity is critically low, the levels in the blind community. And you're like, yep, could have told you that. I need to do a study about that. And then also physical activity is helpful for quality of life. And again, it's in the research at least. So, you know, we got some fancy quotes to go behind that. But as we all know in this room, physical activity does get measurably harder and is much less accessible once we gain a visual impairment. Next slide, please. Okay, so when it comes to education, that can be really a big issue as well. So what do most people do when they're like, I don't know what exercise that is? Let me check it out. Where do they go? Heard YouTube, exactly. You just go watch a video and it's like a guy with the shirt off with fancy gelled hair and he's just like, yeah, you just do this. And you're like, it's not accessible. I don't know. So we have to make sure that things are a little bit more accessible, audio described. And then there's even different issues in the blind community that I've noticed with all my work that people won't necessarily know a lot of different things like what muscles are where and what they do. So we do different things with K-Enable, such as a muscle function series, where we describe where a muscle is on the body, and then also what it does, and then what exercises will be able to work that area. So really trying to shore up that knowledge gap in that way. Next slide, please. Lack of empowerment is a big issue as well. I've done some work, again, all over the world, making fitness more accessible and trying to meet people where they're at, which is very interesting when it's different culturally. So a big thing that I always think about when it comes to empowerment was I was down in Medellin, Colombia a couple of years ago doing a week worth of seminars, and there was one disability center where a lady was just finishing up her master's thesis, and she had discovered that in homes, the males with visual impairments tended to be forced to be a little bit more independent, and they were allowed those sorts of liberties, I suppose you'd say. But then the females with visual impairments weren't as capable in a lot of different ways because they weren't allowed to do that. They were, you know, the family princess and really taken care of, and in many ways shackled to not be able to learn a lot of different activities of daily living. So we're going to find that a lot of times there's going to be issues with support systems allowing people who now have a visual impairment to actually, you know, really spread their wings, really learn a lot of different things. And the way that we learn tends to be through some hardship and problem solving and figuring things out. I'm actually in St. Louis right now, and I was very, very lucky and very happy the timing worked out, working at what's called the SOAR program in accordance with the Lighthouse for the Blind here in St. Louis. And it's these 12 poor kids who are put through boot camp for these 3 weeks. They are exhausted. They are off playing blind sports right now, actually, like goal ball, beat ball, everything like that. And they get put through the ringer and asked to problem solve and picking up skills and everything like that. So when it comes to empowerment, a lot of times that isn't necessarily allowed. A personal anecdote of mine, when I became affected, I already had my bachelor's and some certifications in personal training. I was working at multiple gyms in my small area. But then once the word got around town, a lot of people couldn't tell that I was visually impaired yet because I'm real good at faking eye contact. I'll tell you that, survival skill for me. But once word got around, it was, should he even be allowed in a gym? And like, that is crazy that people will, you know, try to hamstring you that much. So when it comes to empowerment, we got a lot of different ways that we can really approach that and improve that. Next slide, please. Okay, so when it comes to posture, let's think about that from the top down. Who here has developed some more exaggerated posture problems since they became visually impaired? Give me a clap. That's a lot. All right, cool. So we're gonna go from the head down. All right, so let's think about the head. What have we noticed when it comes to our neck and our head? Any issues? It's sore. Your head or your neck? Okay, good. head sore and be like, you just run into stuff all the time, which I'm 6'4". It happens all the time. It's amazing how many cobwebs are up here. I hate it. All right, so neck is always sore. What about position-wise? Do we find ourselves in some disadvantageous positions? Always looking down, leaning forward. Yep. You ever get that chin poke, right? Where you bring your face to your phone instead of your phone to your face, something like that. Where we found ourselves really rounded over, right? Hopefully everybody here is having better posture now that we're talking about it. Everybody's sitting up nice and straight now, right? So we're good. Okay, so that is called protraction, when that chin comes forward. We have a couple of different tactile drills that we can do in order to normalize a better posture and go from there. And we will definitely cover that here in a sec. Now let's go a little bit more south. What about shoulders? What we tend to do? Yes. Remember, if you are with someone who is affected and you're noticing these issues, a lot of you are probably like, yeah, I've been telling them they keep slouching over all the time. Same team here. Okay. So we're slouching in the shoulders all the time. And do we know what muscles that keeps really, really tight? Got any big old bench pressers in here? Yep. Delts are going to be tight. Chest is going to be tight. And then that's going to continue that trend of rounding us forward. It's going to get even harder. You know, when you have somebody who's like in their 80s and they're just like permanently rounded over, and it's just like, it's kind of too late. It's been 80 years of you just being pointed down. That's a big issue. When I was working at a chiropractic clinic, there'd be some people who just couldn't retract and pull those shoulder blades together anymore. So making sure that we work those postural muscles in the upper back, also incredibly important. Now, let's go a little bit further down. Who has low back pain? Yeah, give me one big clap every time something flies to you. That's perfectly fine. All right, so low back issues are going to come a lot because again, it's backed up by research studies, our population tends to be less active. So that's going to lead to a lot more sitting. I have scoliosis, love me some lying down, but you gotta make sure you get up and go and make sure everything is nice and balanced. So what happens when we're sitting too much is our knees are where now compared to standing? Where's our knee? Yes. Yep. So it's gonna be like stuck out the front now. Okay. When you're all sitting here, it's closer to the chest, so it's more flex. So those muscles in the front of our hip are gonna be getting tighter and tighter, and that's gonna cause some different imbalances and kind of leave the low back as that poor victim. So by restabilizing the hips and making sure that those are a little bit better, if we think about our pelvis as like a bowl, it's dumping out water to the front when we have that anterior pelvic tilt where things on the front are too tight and then the low back really gets crunched, hamstrings get way too tight, and we have all those different issues. So by being able to shore that up, and we'll give you some different stretches here in a bit, then that is going to be incredibly helpful for us as well. Now, how about feet? Does anyone notice like kind of duck walking with those toes pointed out? Do we notice that our arches fall in? Any foot numbness or pain? Zero claps. I'm the only one. Man, all right. So what we're going to have is a lot of different foot issues, particularly because we're trapped in shoes all the time. We're not able to spread our feet out nearly as much. So as the LHON community, we can tend to get some neuropathy down there and in our hands. So we have to make sure we're really taking care of those areas as well. And we'll give you some good stuff for that in a bit. Next slide, please. So when we move on to posture fixes, let's go ahead and not do that the shirtless, gelled up hair, snazzy YouTube video way. We're going to do it tactily. Okay. So if my chin is poked forward, for most of these things, we're literally just going to do the opposite. A lot of physical therapists and chiropractors and docs don't want you to know this, but for the most part, if you're doing something bad, just do the opposite and you're good to go. If you're just constantly pulling bank heists, maybe give start saving money, like just do the opposite. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing here is instead of chin poked forward, all we're going to do is make it come straight back. Keep in mind, we don't want our head to go up. We want our face still pointing forward. Now, if we're totally blind, it's kind of hard. You're like, shoot, I don't know if my face is pointing up or not. So all we got to do is put two fingers, second and third finger from one hand on the front of your chin. Snuggling that beard. Everybody's got a nice beard in here, I am sure. I'm used to strongman where you get yelled at if you shave your beard. So, all right. So all you got to do with those two fingers is gently push back. And you should feel a nice little stretch at like the base of your skull, just gently. This is called overpressure. And then by us being able to use a little less pressure, but this is our nice little double check for if we're taking our chin away or not and tilting up, then you're gonna be able to get that stretch. And then you can turn this into an exercise called neck retractions. So take those fingers away and just do that. We're like doing like a reverse chicken neck. Going back 10, 20 reps. You're working like an office job. If you're finding yourself getting these like tension headaches, this can be a godsend. Okay, now I'm gonna find a wall. There's another way to do this as well, and we can actually turn this into a harder exercise, because I got a sturdy wall. Yes, it's sturdy enough. All right, so all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the back of my head against this wall, keep my head nice and level, and then if I am tilting my head up, you know real fast, because it starts pulling on your hair in the back of your head. So I'm gonna go straight back into the wall and relax. And when I'm relaxing, I'm not going into that cruddy posture. I'm just going to a more neutral posture. So it's going to normalize this good posture and make it a lot easier, right? If we're not used to holding good posture, our muscles are going to get tired, or it's going to fall in those compensations again. So we can really build this up here. So I can even like hold for isometrics, where I'm doing 10 seconds of good enough effort, nothing too crazy where I'm going to blow a blood vessel or anything like that. We don't need to overstrain the neck, but just reps like that. And then you're going to be able to have a nice double check again, tactily, that we're doing that right, and being able to do that by feel. Now, when we think about the rounded shoulders, okay, rounding out the front, all we got to do, round out the back. Imagine that you have, your mobility cane or something stuck in between your shoulder blades, and all we're going to do is we're going to pull our shoulders back, big proud chest, and try to snap that cane in between our spine. Okay, so then relax to a nice normal posture that doesn't look weird, and then big proud chest again. Hit 10 reps of that. I want you guys coming out of this session feeling better than when you came in. All right. If it's hard to do that, what's that tell us? Yeah, we're turning into a little bit of a bent fishing pole. Can't have that. You need some more reps. So just make sure you're doing these kind of things more consistently. Okay, working our way down with the pelvic issues. Okay, what we can do is stretch out those hip flexors, and there's going to be another culprit of why this tends to happen in the blind community here in a sec. But what we got to do is, we're not used to taking these really long strides. So I can stay nice and tall. My front leg is kind of in a lunge position, but my back one, I'm just keeping the ball of my foot on the ground, and then I'm allowing my back leg, so here I have my left leg back, to stay nice and straight. I'm going to feel a nice stretch on the front of that left hip. Again, the one that's kicked back. You guys are a little bit condensed here, but go ahead, try standing up. If you just got to like turn sideways, everybody turn to your left if you're going to do this, and just make sure your hand is on your chair, so we kind of stay within space. And then also, you're not worried about balance. And I'll tell you why that is such a good thing, believe it or not, in a sec. Yep, so just a nice long stride. And then from here, that back leg, I have my right foot back now. I'm going to see if I can squeeze that right butt cheek or not. Okay, we're right in the ship here. If we can't squeeze our butt, that tells us that that front of that hip is dominating way too much, and we're not able to use the best, biggest muscles of our body to do anything. And that is why the low back is having to take over, and then we run into knee issues, all this other stuff. So this, and building up the capacity to do this, especially those of us that use canes, when do you ever take this big of a step? Never. Yeah, exactly. So being able to normalize this position is incredibly important. And then hitting some appropriate glute work and stuff like that. Go ahead and sit back down if you've been able to get a feel for that. And then with the foot stuff, I will drone on that in a little bit. And we actually have some full workouts you guys are going to be able to have access to try all these different things at home. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just talked about short stepping. When we do that, we are constantly on the line trying to hit the brakes, right? If I'm tapping using my cane, I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Where am I? Is there going to be anything in my way? Is there a fire hydrant? Is there a bad crack in the sidewalk? What's going on? You're constantly taking these shorter steps than what you normally would, and you're ready to hit the brakes. Those of us who use a cane, do we ever notice that when we're like in a familiar environment, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I get to like roll, and it's just great. That's what we want. We want to be able to work that capacity in a safe space. So I've got like a beat ball team where I think actually tonight they are doing sprints on a straightaway track. They will hate me. That's okay. But it's because we're able to actually get into those longer strides and work those capacities, but in a safe environment. I encourage a lot of people to go barefoot when they have the chance. But if there's, sticks and thorns and all kinds of stuff out in your yard, then obviously that's not a safe way to do that. But any chance we get to prevent that short stepping and be in a more familiar environment, and make sure we get those not just regular steps and try to get to a high total, but those high quality steps we're actually able to stride out and have a lot more hip health, is all the better. Next slide, please. Okay, let's pause here for a second. Do we have any questions? Anything come to mind? I don't want to get too far into the weeds here and have anybody forgetting anything. And I ain't gonna see your hand. We'll give you the professor rules that I had. Just holler out. Say that again, a little louder. Yes, absolutely. That is a huge one. I have been encouraged by some people before to get an even taller cane because, again, I'm way too tall, got way too long arms. But then they see my walking cadence, and how much I work on these long strides, and then they realize, oh, that cane is actually a better thing for me. So yeah, taking all those things into account is huge. I know that my sister forced me to go get my very first cane. I was in Chicago, brand new there, trying to adapt. Within a year of developing Libras and everything, and went off to grad school, and I'm just tripping on everything. They just got stairwells that come out of nowhere onto the sidewalk and just at random intervals. So I almost face planted for like the sixth time that half-mile walk. She's like, Evan, the Chicago Lighthouse is like 2 blocks away from where we live. We are walking there right now, not even going home, and we are getting you a cane. I was like, nah, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to take that step. But she's like, this is happening. Come on. It's like, gosh darn it. Okay. So she won, thank goodness. Because I got my first cane, and that was definitely a little bit, so yeah. That was definitely a little bit too short for me. But as we continue adapting, yeah, really locking that in is going to allow for much better mobility. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, nice to meet you. I have a son that's 19 years old and he's been working out for a while and then he had a stroke. And so he's kind of not going to the gym currently, but that is his goal, is to go back again. How can we effectively support him to get back into the gym? Because that is his thing. He likes to do that for himself and that is where he thrives.
Yeah. I hope I'm looking in the right spot.
Thank you.
How much hemiparesis does he have? Does he have a significant amount? Any?
A what?
Is one side more affected?
It's his left side, but he also has mobility a little bit because of the stroke that he suffered recently. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Not excited that happened, but excited because when I was 16, I got to do a research project for a year at Northwestern University working with stroke patients. We were working on how to help them safely exercise and make sure that they were still getting results and all that stuff. So, okay. When it comes to people who have had strokes, there's that hemiparesis where, if you have a stroke on the right side of your brain, your left side of your body is affected. The beautiful thing is our body has this built-in mechanism where it's just like, I can be a little bit asymmetrical. It's kind of like socially. Like if you're like, I'm a little weird, that's okay. I'm gonna have a niche. But then if you're like alone in the cafeteria and everyone is on the other side, you're like, I might have gone too far with this like weird thing. Same thing with the body. Okay, it's like I can deal with that little bit of asymmetry, but too much, it's like we're not having that. And what the brain will do is it will help rewire things and still give a little bit of activation to that side that's not working. So I've even worked with stroke patients before, where we have them in machines where they're really stable and they're able to try to help out with their weaker side, but still give their stronger side a good benefit because there is a neural transfer. There isn't as much of a hypertrophy response where we're actually building muscle, but that's going to be really important for helping the brain rewire things and use your strong side to then redevelop your weaker side. There's also this neurochemical called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which if you guys are into like memory athletes or anything like that, those crazy people who decide to memorize a deck of cards, and whenever you shuffle a deck of cards, like statistically, that has never been done before, that exact order. So they got to get really good at that for some reason. And what they will do is they will actually exercise while doing that because that BDNF is your brain's way of going, something's happening, I need to get better, right? If we were just working out, or, if you're like, 10,000 years ago hunting in the wild, you're like, man, that mammoth almost got me. I need to be able to dodge that better next time. I need to learn from this experience. Your brain's like, yeah, I agree. I want to live. So it pumps out this chemical through the stressful exercise and pairs it with that. So then you're learning even faster. So the rewiring of the brain and the optimizing of things and helping things to improve can be amplified with that safe exercise. A very cool question. Thank you. Anything else right now? I would still even do unilateral, especially if the stronger side is being underworked because the weaker side is kind of given out. So I would try some bilateral stuff in a very safe position, such as, again, in think about cliche bench press machine. Where you're locked in, there's that plane of motion that you get to try to press in and give it the best you can. But then after that, I would make sure that the stronger side is still getting its work, because then there's going to be that neural crossover component. Cool. All right, let's move on to work capacity. Again, if physical activities are low, we're not going to be used to doing very much, and that's simply what work capacity is, the ability to do like repeated bouts of effort. If you go onto my YouTube, there's like a 10 set to 5 workout where you're just rolling on an audible timer, so it's accessible, and doing a set of 5 every minute on the minute for 10 minutes and slowly building up that. So let's say if you're able to do 100 pounds on squats for 10 sets of 5 every minute on the minute, you keep everything else the same, and you eventually get up to 160 pounds, you're just going to be a different animal at that point, right? You're going to be doing a lot more tonnage in the same amount of time. So our ability to build up our work capacity in safe ways is going to be really good. Can anybody think of a cardio machine that is very stable and safe for us? Oh gosh, that's mean. Yeah, rower is a very good one. Assault bike is if you really hate yourself, you know, if you broke the diet, it's like get on that thing, have at it. Okay, so if we're wanting to build our work capacity in that, those are some very safe ways because we're able to do, if we want to get better at running or something like that, we need to work at directly, but not necessarily all the time, especially like cross-country athletes will be doing cross training where they're doing something else that involves heavy breathing for a while. And that's not to be too redundant and really, again, wind up with these big asymmetries because they're doing the same thing all the time. So rower, assault bike, ski erg machine, those are all great options for building up your work capacity. And we'll talk later about why aerobic capacity is so important for those with LHON, but being able to do that, again, with lower risk of falling. I always say that if you're able to fall off a rower when you're strapped in, you're just a special kind of talented. All right. Next slide, please. Wrist, hands, forearms. Yes. Okay. All right. So, if you came by my table earlier, you're like, this dude has a lot of weird things to hang on to really tight. So I love grip. That's probably where I'm a little bit more talented. I get to travel internationally next year for that too. So that'll be really, really fun. And this is a picture of me with 100 pounds strapped to a belt, and I was about to do a single arm hang off of a pull-up bar. I think went for 15 seconds that time. So love me some grip. And why is because if we have a weak grip, if we have wrists that are getting hurt, if we have forearms that aren't very enduring, and let's think if we have to go for 10 blocks in order to get to our job and tap around with our cane, okay? We get tired after 6 blocks, we're in trouble, right? Another thing is if we have to like go independently to the grocery store. I know I had to do that in a lot of different places I lived. Alaska in the winter, going through what was kind of shovel, but you're just on ice the entire time, all the way to the grocery store, and then get yourself all the way back carrying groceries. You have to have a really good grip because you're going to be using your cane in one hand, usually stabbing through snow and praying that there's not a moose around or something. Very true story. And then carrying your groceries in your other hand and having to swap and make sure that you have the ability to do that without you getting way too much of a muscle pump and things not working nearly as well, and then you not being able to O&M and then making too good of friends with the moose. So being able to do this is incredibly important, and we have some online programs in order to address this stuff. Next slide, please. All right. So when it comes to the feet, and this is just a picture of me doing a lunge for one program we were doing in different articles and stuff. But foot strength and balance is obviously incredibly important as well. If we're doing kind of a duck walk and have our toes pointed out the entire time, we're not going to be able to get into our hip very well. So by improving those foot mechanics, it's going to improve our hip function as well, allow us to take longer strides, and allow our feet to be, again, more higher functioning, be able to be a lot stronger, which is then also going to give us a ton of feedback about the environment that we're in. If we're worried about trips, falls, things like that, the healthier your feet are and the more focus on that, the more we're able to A, detect things, and then B, be able to actually react to those things. If we're going to accidentally skid our foot, trip, start falling, we're able to catch ourselves in this strong lunge position and be able to do that appropriately and know where we are in space because our foot is giving us enough neural information, then we're going to be all the safer for it and not have a catastrophe. I was talking to somebody earlier about like our first fall as a blind person. So hopefully we don't have too dark of stories that way and optimally 0 stories that way. Okay. There's going to be some free foot strength and balance programs. We actually have one on our on our YouTube channel. You can actually go to the playlists and there will be an entire one there. And there's a few minute explanation talking a little bit more about why this is so important for the blind community. And then there's a beginner and a more advanced foot strength and balance program where you're actually moving in a lot of different ranges of motion, not just straight on, not just balancing on one foot. We're actually rotating, moving around in different ways, which are incredibly important. So if you don't want to go through that entire program all the time, I would definitely advise going through it a couple of times and figuring out basically just where you suck the most and then focus on that. You're like, okay, 2 of these 5 things I am so bad at, and just work on those every day. And then hopefully it's, more likely that you're going to have better performance and then be less likely to fall. Next slide, please. That one's way over there. Other symptoms? All right. I'm doing better than I thought, guys. I'm so proud. All right. So other symptoms. When we have LHON, when we have blindness, diseases that cause blindness, there's a lot of different things that come into play as well. Who here has had people, or like especially medical professionals, just lock in on your eyes? They're like, your eyes are bad. And you're like, yeah, I got other problems going on too. We had any medical appointments like that? Yeah. Okay. I know that I tend to get neuropathy in my hands and my feet at times. Since I got LHON, it started manifesting. My hands fall asleep so easily. Like, got to be like careful with how I set myself up in bed, or I'm just going to wake up with, a numb appendage. So, yeah, double clap. All right. So these, I'm not alone, thank goodness. So, but these other symptoms don't get taken into account very much, but we have to make sure that we do. Also, we're not just affected with LHON. I have some real bad scoliosis. I know I'm 6'4", but I'm supposed to be like 6'7", 6'8". So I have a little bit of back pain, right? So we have to make sure that we take our entire person into account and make sure we're addressing everything. Again, a lot of people in, whether it's medical profession, if you get a trainer, something like that, they're not going to take necessarily into account everything. A lot of times we have issues with people just locking in on the eyes. So like, your eyes are real bad. And you're like, yeah, that's just kind of like the weak point. I've got other stuff going on too. So make sure that you're aware of that for yourself and then taking that into account, or making sure that you're advocating for yourself and making whatever practitioner aware of that too. Next slide, please. Okay, so putting it all together, big old QR code here. This is going to lead you to some resources that are going to help with the posture stuff. We've got some gym posture and at-home posture stuff. Again, all that's on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to access that. It's some stuff I was putting together for International AAR, if we're familiar. And so whether you go to the gym or not, we're going to have options for you. Then next slide, please. When it comes to now, we talked about a lot of the physical issues. Now, when it comes to the lack of education, again, I was pressed for 4 years. I am just a tiny nerd who really liked lifting things in order to overcompensate and not get bullied as much. And here we are. So it's that nice little mix. So I'm huge on education, making sure that I'm teaching you how to fish and not just throwing fish at you, okay? So we have some educational resources, and one of them is going to be a quick little ebook just talking about the benefits of exercise for the blind and visually impaired, and that's regardless of age. We have some little sub areas for children, elderly, things like that, and it's called Lack of Sight, Not Lack of Might. You can access that for free on our website, and this QR code will take you there. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Now, this environment, yes? Cool, thank you. Okay, so when we think about environmental factors, what's the big problem with blind people accessing the gym? I haven't heard people yet. People are always a problem at the gym, right? They're leaving dumbbells in the wrong spots. They're leaving gym bags out. They're getting in the way, or they're using the machine that we want to use, and that's fair. But they're, somebody's sitting on their phone instead of using the machine so they can get the heck out of the way, things like that. So that can be very daunting, and I haven't figured out a solution to that yet, maybe one day. But in the meantime, we can get ourselves more comfortable to utilizing a gym once we're able to do our O&M and everything in order to get there. And we can use something like the free gym acclimation program that we have the QR code for here. A lot of times with our environment, again, the gym isn't going to be set up and catered towards blind people exclusively. And I've been asked at different conferences, like, oh, so you have a gym just for blind people? I'm like, no, that's not scalable enough. We have to be able to integrate into the rest of the world as well. And there's a lot of different strategies where this program will take you through that. It's 6 different workouts, and it's just 3 weeks that way, 2 days a week of easing in and starting to figure out what you like, what you don't like, if you need more help with a certain machine, anything like that. And there's also these independence building tasks built in, so you know what to work on instead of letting everything just overwhelm you. It's not day one, where's everything? Go. Like, I'll quiz you. No, we need to figure out where more important things. So generally where the cardio machines are, generally where the weights are, generally where the stretching area is, where's the bathroom? You don't need to get to workout 3 and be like, it's time, and be like, oh no, I don't know where that is, right? So we focus on first things first, and then slowly build things out from there, memorizing the dumbbell rack and what order they tend to be in, figuring out the cable stack and how those pin systems work. Those little things don't seem like a big deal until you're like, I don't remember how the heck this thing works in the middle of a workout. And that can be really frustrating. I want to make sure that the stimulus for you is actually the exercise. So you're actually able to just get after it, and then we don't have nearly as much systemic stress. Again, people are always going to be a constant. There might be some music, everything like that. But once you get catered to that environment, I want to make sure that you're able to really lock in and get the workout that you deserve. Another big thing is we tend to have some overprotective support systems. So a lot of times when it comes to true empowerment in our environment, we need to make sure that people aren't necessarily babying us. Recently, traveling to a different job, I was pulled through by my ring and pinky fingers by one of my meet and assist people who, English wasn't her first language, but she was like, come, 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 and then just dragged me and just pulled me along by 2 fingers. I was like, I can walk on my own, right? So we need to make sure that we're not being overly supported or drugged through the Indianapolis airport, but given enough support and maybe be a little bit codependent until we're able to get more of the gist of things and be able to build things out from there. And I can talk all day about that and chunking and how that helps us for learning, blah, blah, blah. But we'll go next slide, please. Okay, so, safety and efficacy. All right, cool. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about using safety intelligently, okay? We don't need people you can only do machines because you have bad balance, right? We want to be able to work those capacities. If we're doing lunges, balance tends to be a big issue. I was putting the kids in the program here at SOAR through a workout the other night, which most of them came voluntarily, so kudos to them. But we did a lunge challenge at the end, and it was in a hallway. So we had people on the left side, people on the right side, and they trailed their hand along there. So we had that little bit of a balance point. Has anybody ever tried to sprint on ice? Or do we have any of those funny viral videos of like, it's iced over and somebody just takes the funniest fall ever, right? It's because we can't truly exert ourselves that way. You're not going to fully sprint on ice, or you're going to break your nose. So what we got to do is we got to make sure that our system feels stable. A lot of intelligent people, they do, that little penguin walk. That's not getting you anywhere very fast, but it's safer. And our brain is just like, yeah, this is for the best. But if we want to do those lunges and not be worried about falling over and our muscles being inhibited, the brain being like, just make it stop, please. Instead, I can have my chair and I can get into my lunge stance and I can have just a light touch to reassure my brain. It's night and day with, oh, I'm hanging out in open space versus I have a little bit of a balance point. Cool, I'm good to go. And being able to do this. Tell you, I don't have the best balance when I'm doing just normal body weight lunges, but I've done where you have a special barbell that sits on your back without you having to touch it, a safety squat bar, and I've done about 400 pounds on that per leg. So it's a very big difference when you don't feel like you're about to fall and you get off the ice, have a little bit of a balance point, and use that modicum of safety to get a much more efficient and efficacious workout. Next slide, please. Okay, we're talking about appropriate cues. We'll check time here. We're doing fine. Okay, appropriate cues. We got to make sure that we are having tactile sensations built in, and then being able to make sure that that is audible. So what I can do is if my squat, my knees are caving in all the time, I could tie a band against that, or have somebody pressing against the outside of my legs, and I have to fight against that. And you go, okay, do that on your own. Feel those sensations of your feet actually contracting, a strong arch, the outside of your hips actually contracting. Feel where your knees are in relation to your ankles. And that's turning it to tactile intrinsic, so people know what to feel for. And then if somebody is having that issue with their knees caving in, we can turn that to an audible cue of knees out. So that's how we're able to structure these things. And again, this is like full lectures in 1 minute there. But this is the way you can think about any exercise. Give yourself an outside cue, turn it into an inside cue, and then it can be an audible cue if you're being trained by somebody, or you just do that for yourself. So I'll use that for like big cues for myself before I'm doing like heavy deadlift, something like that. I have those cues that are most helpful for me. Be able to keep rolling. Next slide, please. Okay, who has bad knees in here? Anybody with knee issues when they squat, like get out of a chair? Okay, whoever's closest. Right here, right in front of me. Come on up. Yeah. Okay. All right, go ahead, sit in this chair. We're gonna do a wide stance squat. So a lot of times when knees hurt because we're trying to get up and down from a chair, go ahead, give me a couple of squats right here. Yep, no hands helping. Any knee issues like that? You feel okay? All right, go ahead and plop back down. All right, so his feet are pretty much inside shoulder width, they're just like hip width here, and his toes are pointing straight forward. What we can do is we can alter those mechanics in order to make sure that his hips are allowed to help out a lot more as well, and it's not so knee dominant. So I'm gonna have you take your feet out a little bit more, yep, and then bring your actual feet out a little bit more. You can almost use the outside of this chair as a framing. Okay. Yep, and turn your toes out even more dramatically. Knees open up with that. So now you have notice you have like a little window to lean forward. Yep. And now when you sit back down, really shove your butt back like you're going to meet the corner, yep, of where your chair is instead of the middle of the cushion. Try a few of those. See, I can almost like automatically squeeze your butt at the top. Yeah. Good. So what he's able to do here is he's able to actually get a better pre-stretch of his hips and be able to do that. I would have had you all doing this, but the tables are a little bit tight. I don't need anybody headbutting their table. But go ahead, some more claps for our volunteer. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay. Which one was it? Oh, nutrition considerations. How am I doing on time? Giddy up. All right. Nutrition considerations. Our mitochondria suck. I didn't know if you knew that. So what we have to do is make sure that we are obviously eating healthy things, plenty of micronutrients, and then a lot of times people will have more negative manifestations if blood sugar levels tend to stay high. So you can test your A1C and be able to get a hold of that. I've noticed a lot of correlation between people who have type 2 diabetes and it's not well controlled, and when they have more neuropathy, more eye issues, more numbness, all these different things. And then when they're doing things appropriately, when we do that as well, it tends to manifest in a really good way. And that's because we're not throwing too much at our mitochondria, which are inherently a little bit more inefficient. So being able to do this and kind of take that in consideration is very important. Also, accessible tools. If you get a talking food scale and a talking weight scale, which especially if you have sighted friends over and they step on it and they're like, oh, I'm just going to check while I'm here, and start screaming out their weight for everybody in the house. Hilarious. I had one friend who had started, your weight is 100, and he goes, ah! And just drowns it out so nobody knew. So that, again, a talking food scale where you're able to weigh things out in grams or ounces. I have plenty of videos about that on my channel, and more long videos about kind of different aspects of making nutrition more accessible. It's 35, 40 minutes of content. You can check those out. But basically, if we're able to track and even just use Google, hey, Google, how many grams of carbs are in 1 cup of cooked white rice? 54 grams. And then you get to memorize these things and you get to roll a lot easier as well. But by tracking and having the tools to do so more accessibly and really being diligent about that, you're going to get this low level, just your base of understanding of a lot of these different concepts, and it's just going to become second nature for us. So that's going to be really handy if you do want to make alterations. So when I want to get bigger, when I want to lean out, then I know generally what I've been doing, and then I'm able to make the appropriate decisions for myself instead of just kind of guessing and hoping. Next slide, please. Sleep. What's important for good sleep? Huh? Yes, good tactile sensation, absolutely. I've been packing light and I totally forgot a blanket. I was like, top sheet will do. Wrong. So fix that while I've been here for work. Cold, very important. That is going to help our body know it is nighttime and it is time to go to sleep. We're also going to be burning a lot more calories in our sleep that way too. Extra benefit. Light. Who here has photosensitivity? Probably a bunch of us. Yep. I know a modicum of light, and I'm like, this is the worst. So blackout curtains and then eliminating extra lights in your room. I recently even replaced a phone charger because it had a blue light going on, and that was disturbing things. Okay. And then also making sure our nutrition is in line to where we don't have spiked blood sugar, which is then going to impair our growth hormone that we typically get about 2-3 hours into our sleep cycles. And then we're not going to get all the benefits of that. And it tends to mess up our sleep as well. So a lot of stuff with the pancreas, blah, blah, blah. So being able to keep those things in check is very important. Who is also sensitive to noise when they're sleeping? We get woken up like crazy. Yeah. So LHON, then moved to Chicago. Real smart, Evan. Good job. So I had to learn what white noise worked well for me and how I was able to just buffer those issues. So just make sure you're on top of noise, light, and cold as much as possible, and that is going to get you really, really far. Next slide, please. Which one is this? This applies. Okay, thank you. That might help. All right, so lactate threshold is huge. Who has ever worked out and like been really getting after it and you're like, I do not see as well as I did when I got in here? We had that issue? Okay. Very common. I've had my phone zoomed into 1,000,000 and just been like, I don't know what this is saying still. Limped over to my brother and been like, what else is on my program for today? I don't know what's happening right now. He's like, read it out for me. He's like, gosh darn it. Okay, cool. So those things happen and they tend to fade. Of course, medically, I can't be like, don't worry about it. You know, if symptoms sit around for way too long, go get checked out, blah, blah, blah. But the anecdotal evidence is that these things tend to fade, which makes sense because we're raising our lactate by going past our aerobic capacity where we could just chill, have a conversation, and we're pushing ourselves well enough, which a lot of types of working out make us do, and that's okay. And it just takes a little bit longer for us to not notice those effects of the lactate built up. It has to be shuttled all the way to the liver and digested and everything, broken back down, and we don't notice it nearly as much. The hydrogen ions have to be pumped back out, blah, blah, blah. So that's not necessarily something to freak out about. And for me, I even use it as like I'm getting the proper training stimulus when I'm training for certain types of events. In August, I have to compete, picking up a heavy sandbag, running it over there, coming back for another one, put it back with his friend. So that's going to be a lot of lactate within that 30 to 45 seconds. So I have to get used to that stimulus. And if I'm training in that way, it lets me know I'm doing the right thing. Now, with that underlying aerobic capacity, we already talked about our work capacity, and that's our ability to just keep doing things. With the aerobic capacity, it's our ability to keep doing things while not producing that extra lactate, getting into that really burny place. It's super sustainable. We're able to rely mostly on fat at that point, and then we are able to just make sure that we aren't spilling over into that place. That gives us a much bigger buffer of being able to take away some of the lactate, take it into the blood, shuttle it where it needs to go. We won't have quite as many negative manifestations. We're also going to be able to recover and heal a lot faster. So making sure that you have that underlying work capacity and not like sitting on the couch 6 days a week and then you're like really going to get after it with some powerlifting 1 day a week and think that that's going to go really well. Okay. What other bullet? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, yes, hand and foot health. We already talked about the neuropathy stuff. So making sure you're on top of your forearm and hand stuff, which again, entire programs can talk all day about that stuff. And then the foot things, making sure we can balance, making sure that our arches are nice and strong. We can actually spread out our toes, work on those intrinsic muscles instead of just doing a bunch of calf raises and calling it a day. Those are really important. And then 1 or 2 more. Oh yes, diaphragmatic breathing, where we're doing that belly breathing. Probably a lot of chest breathers in here. We tend to have neck tightness. We don't get as deep of a breath. And if we learn to use our diaphragm, if you just put your hand on your belly, right around your belly button, and when you take a deep breath in, that should come out, as appealing as that seems, right? We're visually impaired. Who cares how attractive we are, right? No. Then we're able to start activating the parasympathetic nervous system and actually calm our system back down, which can allow us to take in a lot more context clues with whatever site we have left. So that can be incredibly important, especially if we're in a new scary place or trying to explore a fun place like the City Museum or the Arch. Okay? And then there's one more. Thank you. So with nutrition and sleep then, just make sure you kind of track for yourself what tends to benefit you more. I know I had to really dial in what white noise I use, how intense my blackout curtains need to be until it's really enough, how cold a room needs to be until I'm okay with that. My wife and I have literally different blankets because I run like a furnace and she can't handle the cold that I need in order to make sure that I'm actually sleeping decently and recovering. So just making sure to like kind of personalize these things and be your own experiment and make sure to figure out what works best for you. Let's go next slide, please. Okay, so here's some contact information for me. We have the email. There's a QR code in the top right. if you want to do that. They'll send you to the website and everything. You can scroll down and sign up for the newsletter. That's only for really big things. I hate spam newsletters, so I make sure not to do that to you. It's only if we have something really big and exciting coming up, especially if it's going to be like discounts or anything like that, or more unique things, and I need to talk about it a little bit more. My email is also canenablefitness@gmail.com, spelled C-A-N-E and A-B-L-E fitness, because even though we have a cane, we're still able to do stuff, whether a lot of other people say so or not. Feel free to shoot me an email, stay in contact. If you need any links sent to you that you missed, go ahead and let me know about that. And then next slide, please. All right, we'll go into one more round of questions before lunch. I'm sure we got some rumbly bellies. We good? Okay. All right, real quick though, Instagram and YouTube, go ahead and follow on there. Instagram, obviously more short form, and then I'm working on pushing a lot more long form stuff on YouTube. So we got the QR codes here. Please go ahead and bump up the counts and everything, and stay in touch through those means as well. Yes, questions?
Hey, Evan, really amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Curious, how many people with LHON have you, I guess, trained or coached, whether it be in person or virtual or self-guided?
As one-on-one training, I don't think any, but I've been in contact with several, and they, we've talked shop. Ironically, a couple, I think all of them are in Britain, whether it be England or Wales. Yeah, but very similar responses to intense exercise and all that stuff. It's pretty consistent.
All right, ready for next question? Hi, this is Matt. Just one comment about the gym and low vision. Not sure what you call them. What do you call people who go to the gym and exercise? But you could, if you have
Bros and
iPhone,
broettes. Yeah.
you can
100%.
use the people detection mode in the magnifier app, and then be pointing it at your gym equipment to know if somebody is at the machine or not. That's one technique you could introduce into your clients.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Just a follow-up question to what you were talking about earlier, your vision getting worse after exercising. I was curious, is there a way to determine whether the exercise is too vigorous based on the level of vision impairment at the time, or how do you kind of gauge that, whether maybe you're doing more harm than good?
Yeah, so with where we're at, I've already gotten my like a minor rebound and everything, and I developed LHON over 10 years ago now. Not really worried about the average moving. It's just if I'm going to have a good or a bad day. So physiologically, not really worried about having gone too far, because there's already kind of that basement figured out for me. So now I use it to know if I'm actually even being productive in my workout. If I get so much lactate in my system that I'm going to be using 50% of the weight that I would have if I was fresh on my 8th exercise, something like that, then I know we're done. Like there's no point right now. If I can't even read all zoomed in and everything like that, with how my LHON manifested and what I should usually be able to read zoomed in on my phone, if I just got no clue and the world's spinning too much, it's just like, that tells me it's time to cut it off. But myself, I'm not really worried about long-term manifestations or issues. Yeah.
We have time for one more question, and then absolutely feel free to catch Evan. He'll be here. Are you able to stay through lunch, Evan?
Yeah, I'll be staying for lunch, and I'll be able to stick around till like 2 or so. Love being with you guys, but there's blind kids going to a water park later and going on water slides with blind kids. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so you'll be able to
stay in
catch
touch.
Evan during lunch for sure, but we'll allow for one more question if there is one.
We do. We have one in the back.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the neuropathy, like your hands falling asleep. I never really connected that to LHON, but mine fall asleep like all the time, especially when I'm sleeping. What do you do or recommend for that besides just like adjusting sleeping position?
Try to get a lot of blood flow and make sure that things are really well built up. And then also that we don't have some different asymmetries in our system. There's a lot of people who will get different issues, like numbness and tingling, because they have nerve impingements. And so if we have LHON and that can lead to that happening, it's really hard to quantify it, but it's going to happen pretty often. But then we have these nerve issues where our nerves don't slide and glide very well on the way down to our hand. And then it happens more often than it has to. I do different things in order to shore that up. So actually, for example, I was doing a thing called a power raise yesterday, and I could feel my right tricep hanging on a little bit more, and like kind of my bicep as well when I went in a certain position. So I know now, actually just demonstrating it feels lovely. I know that I need to open up the nerves that track all the way down to my fingers, because that's likely going to cause things to go numb even faster. So addressing, I mean, LHON is what it is, but addressing the underlying issues that could be ignored because we have LHON is very important. So if you look up long form nerve flosses, like an ulnar or radial nerve floss, there'll be different instructions in order to be able to get things open up a little bit more for you, and hopefully then things fall asleep a little bit less.
Grant, that was fantastic. It was awesome.